And welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. 100 years of history behind them. Revolutionary building materials right at your fingertips when you go visit these guys in downtown Knoxville. I tell you about Nudura concrete forms. They have many different cutting-edge tools that you can use. But boy, this stuff is fantastic because it's easy to use. And it also is more energy efficient than steel or wood. Get down there and check it out. These folks are great. They've been doing it for more than 100 years. In terms of expertise, nobody has more. A.G. Hines Company. All right, take a look at this graphic. And this is a Bob Hodge special. He threw this out to me yesterday, so I'm going to throw this question right back in his lap first. Last year, the Vols finished 12-1 in February and March. They win the SEC tournament. They lose to Michigan and miss the Sweet 16, and all was ruined. Everyone was mad. This year, they finished 5-7 in February and March. They lose in their second game of the tournament, but they beat Duke in the second round to reach the Sweet 16. So all was righted, or is it a total reversal yet, Bob?
I'm going to go with total reversal because I sat here last week and thought that we still wouldn't be sitting here this week talking about the future of Tennessee basketball. And last year was about as good to the end of a basketball season as Tennessee has ever had. I mean, you go back throughout their history and to win the SEC tournament for the first time since I was in high school. I mean, it was just everything was fantastic. Michigan didn't look like much of a threat coming up in the second round. I mean, they were barely over 500. So all that combined and crashing. I think this year, after the way your season began to go south for you in February, and did anybody on our panel last week pick Tennessee to go to the Sweet 16? I don't think so.
I think Josh threw out that it was a possibility. I can't remember. He was kind of being the
well, anything is possible.
the Chuck last week.
Yeah. I think this does totally turn it around from where you were this time last year. I think it is a complete 180-degree difference from where we were sitting here this time last year.
You guys agree? Did that win make this a good year, period?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Because if you don't beat Fairleigh Dickinson or Florida Atlantic, can't you hear the whining right now?
And that was going to be my next point.
Well, especially hasn't won in the second round.
You almost
How
wish
can,
you
how can you
second
not?
weekend, yeah.
You could have gone to the Elite Eight and you
Right.
lost to one of those teams.
Right.
The problem is
all
FAU's a good team. That's a
Right.
legit team that people don't realize.
And they don't have a name.
Right. So,
And so to Bob's point, if you say right now, okay, but I'm going to go not yet because I'm saying if you lose to one of those teams,
Then it's really going to negate a lot of what you've done. I mean,
think so.
I
is
didn't
it the
even
majority
see-
of the we're talking majority of the fans?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
I
majority.
think it will when you're knocked out of the tournament and you had it all here and you're thinking, guys,
had
when,
it all
20
here.
years from now, we're going to look back and realize what a great opportunity we had to do something no Tennessee team's ever
I
done.
disagree with that to a point, but Jimmy's point, I think, is the good one. Take out Florida
Chuck.
Atlantic and say it's Florida State. That goes down a little bit easier if
Well,
you lose next
FAU
week.
beat Memphis, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about
Yeah,
a
they
point.
did.
Well, they've lost 3 games all year.
Yeah,
But,
what if
but
it was-
nobody's
Show
going to
you
take
how
that
good
into
they are.
consideration. For
Right.
Florida Atlantic,
They
they
don't-
shouldn't be able to beat Tennessee. It doesn't matter how good
That's
they are.
right. That's true. I just got a problem with it, right? I think if you're being honest and you said, well, it was all ruined last year because we didn't make the Sweet 16, you didn't just make the Sweet 16 this year. You beat Duke. And anyone with a soul hates Duke. To beat them and get to the Sweet 16 when you were struggling, when it was looking in the wrong direction, 25 wins this year. Wins over Kansas, Duke, Texas, Maryland, Alabama when they were number 1, and you make the Sweet 16. Sorry, you're nitpicking if you complain that they lose to FAU because I don't like the "it was all there" argument. Ask Purdue if it was all there
Yeah, we
against
need to
FDU.
take Fairleigh Dickinson
Anything's
seriously.
possible.
you said majority
The
of
majority
fans.
of fans.
And that's why I'm going where I'm going.
Yeah.
I think the majority would still be positive.
No,
No, not after the game. Give it a month. I think after
Yeah,
they'll look
that's me.
okay.
I'll say this, not complete reversal from last year, but I think Tennessee had done such a good job of lowering the bar for itself over the past 2 months.
Right,
that
yeah,
This
that's
now
fair.
feels like a salvaging of what was going to be a lost season if they had lost in the second round. So I think this, if you compare this to where they were in January now, people would not be happy.
Yep.
But because of where they've been the last 2 months, people now would feel better about this. Someone on our message board at GoVols 24/7, right after the game said, "I'm good." no matter what happens the rest of the way, this year's a success. And I
And
think
it's easy to say that then.
people will, yeah, I agree. Now, it'll be different when they lose or if they lose to someone Thursday night, but they still feel better about it because they beat Duke and because Duke was hot at the time.
Going back to the beginning of the season, though, we said, what's the goal? And it was compete for the SEC title, get the Sweet 16. All right, you didn't compete for the SEC title, but you were top 10 for most of the year
Right.
until you started losing players and you collapsed at the end. You were top 10 for most of the year. You beat a lot of top quality opponents I just mentioned, and you made the Sweet 16. It's hard for me to then go back and say, no, it was a failure. I know you're right that there will be some that do it. I just think that the sting will fade, and if you lose to FAU, I think by May, people will look back and say, it was a good year, though.
What if you lose to Fairleigh Dickinson, which is fairly average?
I think that's fairly obvious. That would be a good deal.
They're also fairly short.
Yeah, that's, and their defense is here's the thing, and we'll save it. We'll save it to show you how terrible FDU is. But this is the tournament. That's the tournament. Take the names off of it. People sit there and
Right.
say, well, anybody can beat this team, and then we look at Tennessee, and that doesn't apply. It's, well, you've got to beat Fairleigh Dickinson and Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic just beat Memphis. Fairleigh Dickinson just beat Purdue. They're the worst defensive team in the country, and that's barely an
Yeah.
exaggeration. And
Right.
they beat Purdue. Princeton.
Oh, that's
is in the
where I
Sweet
was
16.
about to go.
a 15
I want to
seed.
see how many brackets
just
had
basketball.
Princeton in the Sweet 16.
None in our office.
No. All right. When we come back, can a team that relies this much on defense, and remember last week we were talking about offense, it's taking over the tournament. So, can a team that relies on this much on its defense as much as Tennessee does, can it win the whole darn thing? We'll debate that next. Come on back on the Sports Source.